like sucking, but I ain't gay.
Legit bad podcast.
Fuck those honkies.
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
He really knows how to suck a wiener.
Yeah, welcome to Legit Bat. Happy New Year, you fucks.
Retarded faggots.
Thanks for joining us. We got a New Year's Day show, and I'm very surprised that we actually all made it here because I'm decently hungover. I've been worse, but I'm trying to fix myself at the moment. So
I was really drunk the day after Christmas, which he called Christmas the 26th.
I was drunk.
While he was singing a song.
Yeah, I could tell when he showed up at Mom and Dad's. I was like, you are not okay in any way, shape, or form. He was like kind of stumbling, rebuttoning his buttons, and like, hey! I was all, oh, fuck, Dad's gonna sniff that one out literally in like 2 minutes.
No, he can't even smell.
Were you singing Mariah Carey's Christmas hits?
No, stop. Don't even do that.
He was actually singing. So Bad Religion has a Christmas album, and he was singing Hark the Herald Angels Sing.
Oh my
God. But instead of singing Glory to the Newborn King, he said, I'm drunk and it's Christmas 26th or something.
Oh my God.
That was Joe. I had to write it down.
We actually do have a list of hilarious things I say when I'm drunk. Jen wrote them down.
Was farting.
Well, yeah, I mean, shocking. And sorry, bootstrappers. Yeah, we're talking about farts, but I won't play the sounds. So it's a compromise. Anyway, so hope everyone had a great New Year. Mine's okay. It's 2023. It's still the same thing. It's just we call it something different now, so that's cool. Yep. But we have Ryder Lee from Raised by Giants joining us today. And why don't you start out by introducing yourself in your show? He's a fellow Forbidden Knowledge News Network show, or is that how you? Yeah, something like that. Podcaster.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, my brain's not working today. What do you want?
Well, sorry, but I'm very upset that it took you guys this long to invite me on your show.
That actually makes sense, dude. You pop up on my Facebook as someone you may know all the time. And for the longest time, I was like, do I know that fuck? I don't think I know that guy.
I thought we had been trying to schedule you for a while.
Lies. No,
I had no idea.
No,
honestly.
dude, I have a mental list in my head of different people I want to have on, but it fades in and out with drinking and stuff.
No, we're super glad that you came on. Thank you so much.
We met Ryder a bunch on Day Zero and probably some other shows we do. Lindsay Sharman, that whole group. He knows Chris Matthew,
right?
And so yes, very glad to have you on. But what do you do over at your show? I mean, I know, but the listeners might not.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me on this very first episode. I'm very honored of the new year. And I don't understand why do we even celebrate New Year's? It doesn't make any sense. Like,
it's a great place to start.
It doesn't make any sense, but
100%. I was just thinking about why stuff is closed on New Year's Day. That's dumb.
In honor of Jesus.
No religious. No. Anyway, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was thinking the same thing.
No, it's the dumbest holiday ever. Like, I don't understand it. Like, oh yeah, one year we went around the sun a couple of times. Yeah, let's go celebrate. It doesn't make any sense to me. I think it's the dumbest holiday that's out there. That's even. I don't think that did we celebrate this in ancient times? I think this is a very modern thing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, in ancient times, they didn't even count the years the same. Jesus was born, and they're like, now we're doing it this way. And they would just one life.
They would look at the stars, know when the equinoxes were going, and know that meant certain things for their culture, depending on what part in the world that they were in. It's like, there's a reason why people always talk about the first frost. That was a huge sign for them. If they were coming into harvest season and they had their first frost, that was their ding, ding, ding. Shit's going to get cold now. Like, it doesn't make any sense. I know the Chinese have been celebrating New Year's for a very long time. I would
celebrate that in like June or something.
Whenever their year ends. But for them, every single year is a big year because it all symbolizes, the animal that corresponds to what they feel like that year is going to do. And it's very horoscopish. But even that has more depth than American New Year's. Like, all we do is just get hammered, shoot off fireworks and shotguns we're not supposed to have on us.
America.
Yeah.
America, fuck yeah.
No, so
Yeah.
isn't the tech, like I heard a lot of people talking about how the actual New Year, I don't know if this is in ancient times or not, but the actual New Year is like basically in spring. Like that's the new year, like that's the full cycle because you have everything coming back new, everything's blooming, then
Blooming,
everything
yeah.
gets hot, then dies, and then it comes back again in the spring. So that actually does make more sense
It
to
could
have
take
New Year in
the
spring.
Yeah,
any
but
way
what
that
if
you wanted it to be.
Yeah.
what if you're in the Middle East though, where it never gets cold and it's
Then
hot
you just
like all the time?
celebrate sand and camels
I
and
don't
shit.
know. The last time I heard about like Palestine or Iran or Syria was a while ago. And every time I do hear about them for the last, I don't know, probably before I was born, it's always really shitty. So I'm like, yeah, they might celebrate the new year, but I have a feeling that as the last 2,000 years, it's probably the same thing as every other day over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of shooting, a lot of, yeah.
A lot of cow
What else
herding,
to do?
goat fucking, you name it.
Donkey shows.
So we were talking
Mature
before the show.
avocados.
Oh, mature avocado. Oh, that's an inside joke. Look that one up if you want. Take your
No,
safe
don't.
off. So we were talking before the show, and I know you and Chris have kind of been looking into the whole Corey Goode thing. And for people that don't know, why don't you give us a background on that motherfucker? And I never really paid attention to that. I'd heard about it, and I'd heard the 20 and back and the secret space program and super soldiers and all that shit. And I always kind of passed it off as like, that sounds like utter bullshit. And most of the people that talk about that stuff sound like they're fucking crazy. So I'm like, I don't really care.
Cool
So
concept, but with very uncredible people
yeah. So
talking about
give
it.
us a little background on Corey Goode. Ben probably doesn't know who he is either, but and what happened with that, how it started and how it's going, basically, because how it's going is fucking funny.
Well, yeah. Well, basically, what happened is see, I was really interested in all of this stuff whenever I first started my show, close to around 3 years ago now. I was kind of like, I'd watch some people that were talking about it. I never put too much credence into it. I'm just like, oh, hey, this sounds interesting. More like a science fiction fantasy story, fighting
Yeah.
aliens in space for 20 years and then being age regressed back to the very point that you were taking. It was just completely ridiculous stuff. But I still found it kind of interesting because they were talking about a few like real things that were happening, like with MK Ultra. That's where like their story always starts out, is like with MK Ultra, they were abducted by these people, they were taken to a military base, they were mind fractured, and then they were immediately sent through a jump room to go to Mars and fight aliens, and then for 20, 40, 60 years, and then age regress back in time. So Corey Goode kind of got his start in 2012 on this forum called Project Avalon, which Project Avalon is like an offshoot of Project Camelot. I don't know how long you guys have been really in the community or not, or far enough back.
I'm familiar with Project Camelot. Isn't that kind of a lot of bullshit too?
Yeah, it's Carrie Cassidy, and she's been doing it for a really, really long time, since like 2005 and stuff. She kind of pioneered this whole conspiracy and secret space program. She kind of made them popular, right? So Corey Goode began on this forum, which was a split off between Project Camelot. It became Project Avalon, and it was an online forum. And he was on there like talking with all these people. He was basically just getting a story all together, right? So he puts this story together. David Wilcock, I'm sure that you guys are familiar with who David Wilcock is. He kind of latched on to Corey Goode's story. He was involved at Gaia, which Gaia is like freaking huge, when it comes to spiritual concepts and aliens and UFOs and all that shit. So he hooked up with David Wilcock. David Wilcock brought him to Gaia, and they created this huge show, which is called Cosmic Disclosure, right, in 2015. And this show was freaking huge. It made Gaia millions of dollars off of this one show with Corey Goode and David Wilcock, right? And then around 2018, there was like this split between Corey Goode, David Wilcock, and Gaia. And things didn't go down well. They kind of split ways, right? So then there's a few people, I don't really want to, really name their names because it's an ongoing like lawsuit right now with Corey Goode and these people. But there was a group of people that kind of came out and was like, hey, Corey's full of shit. Online, they were getting on YouTube and on Facebook and on Facebook groups and being like, hey, he's just completely made up this entire story. It's fake. It's bullshit. It's not real. And Corey Goode gets pissed off. He's like, oh, these people are, ruining my career. I was making all of this money before. I was making, close to $1 million off of one course. And now I can only make $50,000 off of
What
one
was their
course.
grounds? Just real quick, what was their ground for saying that he was making it up? Besides the fact that it sounded ridiculous, how did they know?
Well, the producer of Gaia that produced the show was really close with Corey, and he was giving Corey information, and then Corey would turn around and put that into the show. Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
He would be like, okay, well, what do you think about this other secret space program that are whistleblower or asset that's coming up with all these claims? And then Corey would watch it and then later on incorporate what he heard from that person say into the show.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it became like this whole like thing. Over time, they realized that
So he watched him make it up in real time.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what was going on. So Corey gets really butthurt and is like, oh shit. So he just decides to go after all these people and sue them for what's that called when you sue somebody for damaging your
Intellectual
character?
property or
Well,
slander or libel or
slander. I want to say defecation, but it's not defamation. Defamation.
Wow, yeah. It depends on what court case you're in. If you're in Johnny's Depp, it's defecation within defamation.
defecation of character.
So
Yeah.
defecation of character. Yeah, he
That's
shits his
the
pants
grumpy.
like 24/7 all the time. It's a really big problem. But no, defamation. He decides to sue these people for defamation for saying that he was creating these stories and it's all a part of his his whole story and everything. So then these court cases come out, right? So he just had a court case. There was a deposition that he had to, go under oath and like testify, about all the stuff that he's suing these people for. And then the deposition is later on referenced in court. So there was there were 6 videos, 6 hours long in total, that was released around, I think 2.5 weeks ago now, or 3 weeks ago. And what had happened is if you watch these videos, they're really concerned about the information getting out and it becoming public. They're like, hey, like this is like a private thing, right? No one else is going to be able to view this, blah, 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 from the very first deposition video. And what happened is that his lawyer is a complete idiot and has absolutely no idea what she's doing. And apparently she's a part of his whole SSP cult too. And she's working for him for free. So she screwed up and didn't file the right paperwork to make the deposition videos private videos. So after 30 days, they became public deposition videos. So
Oops.
all of this information came out, and he basically said under oath in court that he made everything up, that he made up the secret space program, that he made up the 20 and back program, that he made up Dark Fleet, that he made up basically his entire story, and it's all a part of his intellectual property, which is the exact same thing that he was claiming that these people were doing to him, saying that his story was fake and made up and not real. He just goes under oath in court and says that is fake, made up, and not real.
It was in a very roundabout way too. We listened to it. I think, was it OBDM who covered it?
Probably.
And we were listening to pieces of it, and just the way that whoever is asking him the question about, did this really happen? And he says, it really happened in my mind. And
Yeah,
he's
he
not-
answered
he
it
doesn't
really
fully
weirdly.
Come out and say, I made it all up. He says it's intellectual property because it all happened in my mind. And then the person talking to him and says something like, so did you make it up? And he's like,
It's my story.
it's my story. Yeah, he says something to try to make it sound true. He says it's true to me. It happened to me in my mind. So it's kind of a roundabout way of saying I made it all up.
Not really. He basically says that he made it all up. If you watch, I've watched them all like freaking 4 or 5 times because I've done a few episodes on this with Shane the Ruiner, which has been calling out Corey Goode for like 8 years now. So
Nice.
I've watched them several times. I've watched commentary on them. I've clipped them all out. I've put them all on my Instagram page. I've made a Corey Goode mashup video. So I basically know exactly what he said. And he is asked directly. He says, the deposition lawyer asks him, he says, so Corey, have you ever been to space? Right? And Corey replies, physically? And the deposition lawyer asks, yes. And he says, I don't believe so. Right? So it's like, and then, later on in the deposition, it's like a bunch of different things thrown in there, a lot of pieces that you kind of got to piece together. And then he also talks about these beings that he would talk to, that he has made the public believe have been physical experiences since 2015. See, this is the biggest problem with this whole thing, is that he's been frauding the public and telling everybody that these experiences are 100% legitimate, real experiences, physical experiences. And then he says that they're not, right? He says that the beings that he was, channeling are a part of his imagination and a part of his meditative process, when he's been leading everyone to believe that he's physically meeting with these inner earth beings from inside the earth, and he's having these secret meetings with them, and they're giving him all of these classified information and all these meetings and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And he says that he made up Darkfleet, that's a part of his intellectual property, that no one ever talked about Darkfleet before he started talking about it, that it's all in his book, and that he made up the 20 and back program, that it's a story, that it's not real.
Well,
So
you know-
You can
know,
tell that it's true that he made it up, because if you made up a story and someone stole that story, you'd get very upset. However, if something that insane really happened to you and someone else said that happened to me too, you'd want to reach out to that person and connect with them 100%. You wouldn't shit on
Compare
them.
notes and shit.
So it's
yeah.
very obvious that he made all of it up.
Exactly. And that was the point of the producer that came out in 2018, 2019, and was saying all this stuff that he was making it up. That was one of his points as well. Because Corey was he didn't want to talk to anybody else that was saying that they were a part of any of these programs, because he made it up, and he felt like that these people were stealing his story and his intellectual property.
So
Yeah.
And
there's another facet to that too, where you can almost tell a fraud is like, several different podcasters have talked about that aspect, where they don't want to work with anything else, anyone or anything else that is claiming to have the same thing, because it's stealing their thunder. It's stealing their ride to the top that they're using. But the other way that you can do it is, it's crazy, because these people that usually make it up, every contact that they have is something really important that nobody else can get. It's
Yeah.
always super classified documents and equipment and technology. But then when you actually ask them for the particulars, they're like, well, I didn't get actually any blueprints, but this was what they told me was going to be coming. It's all word
This
of
shit's
mouth.
always what do they call it? Bombastic. It's hyperbole.
Right. It's
so
like-
sensational. And what's funny is that the same people that will believe that kind of stuff are the ones that are like, oh, CNN said anonymous source, but they'll believe somebody like Corey Goode, who says he has an anonymous source about Darkfleet or something.
Well,
it's
and you see the same thing with past live experience. You can weed out who's bullshitting, because most of the people that are bullshitting, every time they pick out a past life, it's like this super important, super exciting story.
yeah.
It's
I
the
was an
same
Egyptian pharaoh. Yeah.
I was an Egyptian pharaoh. I was Cleopatra. Nobody wants to be like some of the ones that you hear, where they're very shy about saying it because it's not the best story. It's either not exciting or it's horrible. One of the ones
Yeah,
I
you
heard
never
was
have
that-
somebody who's like, I remember a past life where I was a peasant and I was 6 years old and I lived for 10 years total, and then I died because I was hungry. No,
Many
you never hear that past
Masters
life.
does talk
Oh,
about
really?
that. Yeah.
That's-
Oh yeah.
That's why some of them that you end up hearing, where the guy's like, yeah, I don't really want to talk about my past life experience. One, because of who I was, and two, because of how real it was. So if this was actually a real one, a kid started having these memories as early as he could talk. And it ended up being that he knew details about this that people hadn't found until he named his past life. And then when they dug, they actually found it, because there wasn't any other frame of reference. And he was a fucking regular Wehrmacht Nazi that tortured and killed people in a concentration camp. And then when he had the name and gave it to them, then they went into the archives and ended up finding that at this point, that's exactly where that guy was.
Gay
And he's like,
Hitler.
yeah, I don't want to talk about that. I was a horrible person in my past life. Like, you can always tell these markers, whether it be from people that are talking about contact with aliens, past life experiences, even NDEs, where it's like, nah, You're just making
Yeah.
that shit up.
So
And
Yeah.
if they want a lot of money too, that's another big
Right.
thing. They're
And
trying to get
fame.
money, trying to
And
teach
that-
courses, trying to sell lots and lots and lots of books. A couple books is understandable if you want to get your story out. But if you're trying to just like pump it out, obviously.
Well, that's what's referred to in this
Giggity.
deposition video too. Corey several times in the deposition videos refers to the community as a billion-dollar industry. Right? And if that tells you anything right there, it's, you know, that he's all about the money. And he also refers to that he is trying to like get into Hollywood and create this, you know, create movies and comic books and all this stuff based off of his fake made up story. He even references
Right.
Star Wars in there as well. He's like, it's kind of like Star Wars.
I'm
know?
down with that though. Like, if he wants to make good content, I mean, those stories are fucking great. First of all, I don't believe him for a second, but they're fucking great stories. It's like Star Wars or Star Trek. Watch that shit. It's fucking entertaining, whatever. But to think that it's real. So the other thing I was thinking about this earlier though is, isn't that a perfect way? Like, if that shit was real, wouldn't it be the perfect way to make it seem ridiculous by having all this out there? I mean, I'm not saying it is. It always, I'm trying to think on both sides here. Wouldn't it be,
Well,
if there
that's
was a secret space program and all that shit, have some crazy kook come out and then be uncovered as a fraud who just wants money? You know, I don't know. What do you
well,
think
that's
about
exactly what I was trying to like really uncover with this whole thing, because this whole thing came out at the perfect time, right? Because I'm doing all this MK Ultra research, because I'm actually trying to dig down into the parts of these people's stories that are actual, real, legitimate stories, right? And the MK Ultra stuff is real. I've interviewed Kathy O'Brien. She's came out and been talking about this stuff. She actually had a court hearing in front of Congress in 1995 about the MK Ultra that she suffered. And then another thing that, you know, I was trying to dig into, because it's related to the secret space program topics, is that they always talk about, which is the Stargate project, right? They always talk about the Stargate project, that it was this magical portal opening kind of governmental funded project, and they were doing all this stuff in space. They were opening portals on Earth, going through the portals, and then going to space for 20 years and like all this crazy stuff. But if you actually research the Stargate project, it's an actual real government funded Army intelligence DIA program that were studying psychics, ESP channelers and stuff like that to collect data information, to collect intelligence data, right? And the funding for that started in 1972, and the CIA was funding SRI International, which was the first group of people to actually be funded by the government to study this kind of research. But actually, if you go back to the declassified MK Ultra documents, you'll see that Sidney Gottlieb actually had sub-projects that he was running in the MK Ultra projects that were studying ESP, psychic abilities, and remote viewing and stuff too. So then you fast forward to 1972, where Stanford Research International was also studying that, and then the Army got a hold of it in 1975, and then it got transferred to a DIA project and became a special access program in 1979. And then the project was shut down in 1995 by the CIA, when it was supposed to be handed back to the CIA. And the CIA shut it down, saying that there was no active intelligence data that was ever collected from the program. See, they like to mix a bunch of fact with fiction here to muddy the waters on really what's going on. That's why it's a cover-up. It's to cover up the real legitimate shit that's been happening on the planet since World War II.
Yeah, the best way to cover up a lie is to put something out that is true and then make it look fucking ridiculous. Because then anytime, it's the same with I'm not saying this is true, QAnon stuff. They use Q as an umbrella for literally anybody who questions anything. And Q got so fucking out, like, no offense to anybody who was into that, I was not, but it got so out there that it was obviously bullshit if you're paying attention. So to to put everything under that. And like now, if you're questioning anything, you're a MAGA Q-tard, Trump person or something. It's really strange how that went down, like very quickly too, within the last couple of years.
And that's a perfect example to cover up anything that might actually be going on in space, right? Because there's been a lot of researchers in the past, since like 2000, that were actually doing real secret space program research, like a rudimentary, not this fantastical fucking bullshit
Disney shit we see on the screen.
Yeah, not that nonsense, but a real rudimentary secret space program and what there might be doing in space, like having people, legitimate real humans on Mars, legitimate real humans on the moon, and they were getting really close to figuring this shit out. And then boom, 2015 hits, and bam, fucking Corey Goode's on the scene, and just all of it's gone basically. Now there still are really good researchers out there that are researching it, like Walter Bosley, Dr. Joseph Farrell, even Darcy Weir. Darcy Weir has done really good work. He's created a lot of documentaries on the Apollo missions and stuff like that, and trying to get to the bottom of what's really happening in space. Right. So that's been, it served as on a bunch of different levels, but like that is a really big one, is to cover up anything real that might actually be happening in space from technology that we've developed. And when you look back through where all this phenomenon really started happening, you realize that it's us, and it's been us this entire freaking time. All the UFOs and all that stuff, it's all us. It's all us and our highly advanced technology. None of it's ETs. ETs.
Yeah,
don't
isn't that
exist.
funny how people want to always point to an alien, ancient aliens? That show drives me absolutely fucking bonkers. I tried to watch, like, I don't even know how we had the History Channel. Yeah, and I was watching, I'm like, let's check out this ancient alien shit. Let's see what this is all about. Every episode is the same. It ends the same. And it's been going on for like, I don't know, 15 years or some shit. It's been going on for a long time. And why are we always pointing to something else when I think the way Crow 777 puts it is the peanut butter and jelly sandwich idea. He's like, if you go out into the desert and find a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, are you going to say, wow, a very advanced race built this? He's like, no, a fucking human built that. That's what we do. We build peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So, I mean, that doesn't apply to, right. It doesn't apply to everything, obviously, but it's a funny way to think about it.
But
it's like the show Travelers we just started watching again. Like, have you seen Travelers?
Yes, on Netflix.
Yeah.
So
Really
they're a
good show.
super advanced race, and they fucked up. So they're coming back to try to figure out how to fix everything. And I can see ETs, the way they're described by, contactees or people who claim they're contactees, they don't sound like they have a whole lot of emotion or a lot going on. It seems like they fucked up a little bit.
Well, here's the thing, is that we've completely gotten the wrong idea about what a extraterrestrial even is, right? And that's been our fault. We've fucked that up. We fucked that up with our own assumptions and our own thoughts and our own ideas. And we've thought that the government has been covering up the existence of extraterrestrials this entire time, when they haven't. They've been telling you the truth the entire fucking time. It's just no one's listening because they think that there's a cover up with ETs and extraterrestrials, right? After every single event, every big event that's ever happened UFO related in the United States. Now, I can't speak for other countries because I haven't done any research on other countries, but there has been, craft and stuff that's crashed in other countries and shit, but I don't know anything about that. I'm just focusing on the United States here, right? So after every event, the Roswell event of 1947, the Washington Flap event of 1952, the Kecksburg event of 1965, all these events, there's always a person from the military. It's normally an Air Force general or somebody that is, a part of the military at that time, always comes out and has like a public awareness thing that like does like a public, appearance and a public speaking thing. And they always say, every time they say, there is absolutely no reason to believe that this event had anything to do with extraterrestrials. Right?
Yeah.
Well, if it's not extraterrestrials, then what the fuck is it?
It was a weather balloon.
That only leaves one other option, though, right? It leaves one option, and that it's us and our technology.
Right.
that we've created, that we've had since the mid 1800s, that we've been working on since the mid 1800s in Northern California. You guys are from Northern California.
Yeah, yep.
I don't know if you guys have looked into the Sonora Aero Club, but they were building advanced anti-gravity craft using spinning green mercury in the mid 1800s. There's schematics, there's pictures of this, there's drawings of the craft that they were building. You just type in on Google Sonora Aero Club and it'll come up with all of the different schematics and drawings that of the craft that they were working on. And then if you look at the newspaper articles from way back then, that's when you'll see people talking about seeing stuff in the sky, right? At that same period. And then you fast forward a little bit to Germany during World War II, they were doing the same thing. They were trying to build crafts, but using a different kind of substance. They were trying to use a red spinning mercury in their craft. Their Bell, the Glocka craft was using that same exact kind of spinning mercury anti-gravitical craft. So then after World War II is when all these things start happening. All of the events happen after World War II, right? World War II ended in 1945. The event right after that was the Roswell event, which many people believe, including Walter Bosley, Dr. Joseph Farrell, and a few others that I've talked to, was a crashed Nazi craft that we brought the Germans over from World War II and Project Paperclip, all the aerospace technicians and all of that to come in and build NASA, because NASA wasn't a thing until the Germans got here, right? And all of the aerospace techs went to NASA to help them build these anti-gravitical craft, right? And the crashed Roswell craft was a special access black budget project that none of these Air Force people would have a need to know of exactly what it was, right? That's why they were like that general at the Roswell event. I can't remember his name. He's referenced in all of the Roswell stuff saying that, oh, I've never seen anything like this before. Well, you wouldn't have the need to know what this technology actually was.
Well, the Roswell thing was always funny to me too, because it's like, if you're saying it's an alien crash ship, that means that they traveled how many light years in a crazy technology UFO, whatever, and then they just like and crashed on Earth. Like, I don't think so. That sounds more like something humans would do.
Exactly. And then you fast forward a little bit from that, which is the Washington Flap event of 1962. Oh, 52, sorry. I get the dates mixed up sometimes because there's a lot of freaking dates to remember, but 1952. There was a shoot down order. Those were the UFOs that was over the White House. There's many pictures of that online. You can just Google the Washington Flap event and it'll bring up pictures of UFOs over the White House. Well, there was a shoot down order given for those UFOs, right? So why in the world ever would you give a shoot down order to a group of UFOs if you thought that they were extraterrestrial? You just got out of one of the biggest wars ever fought in the history of the world in World War II. You're going to risk going to war with a freaking intergalactic species.
Right.
Not going to do it. Right. And then the Kecksburg event of 1965, which was in Pennsylvania, it looked very, Dr. Joseph Farrell talks about this and he's written books about it and everything. It looks very similar to the Bellcraft that was being developed in Germany during World War II, which also looks very similar to the lunar lander as well. That acorn type craft.
Yeah. What do you think about, like, so things like accounts in the Bible of people that point to aliens in the Bible, like Ezekiel seeing the wheel in the sky and all this shit? What do you think about that? The old school, like, I mean, apparently old school. We don't really know when the Bible was written for sure, but like things like that, the older accounts, like they say, oh, aliens and UFOs aren't anything new. It's been happening through all of time. Like, what do you think that is back, if you can trust those accounts from back in the day?
Well, yeah, I would like to preface this by, I don't think that any religion text can be cited as a historical document. But with that being said, with that being said, I think that maybe those craft were done by people like a highly advanced human civilization that had been here for a really long time.
It makes sense. So, if the Earth or whatever this is has been around for an enormous amount of time, it really makes sense that there's cycles that happen and there's things, there's highs and lows, like the Kali Yuga idea where it's there's highs and lows and there's golden ages and then there's high technology and then something fucking happens and we fuck it up, or something natural happens and we get wiped out and we got to rebuild from scratch, and then we find shit 10,000 years later like Göbekli Tepe and all these weird old sites and stuff that we have no answers for according to the mainstream narrative of human history. So yeah, it makes sense to me.
Well, also too, there's stories in the Vedas of and a bunch of ancient historical texts as well, like the Sumerian text and stuff. It talks about this group of people that developed all of this advanced technology, and then when something was about to happen and the earth was about to be destroyed, whether it be a natural disaster or not an organic disaster or whatever, a manufactured disaster, they would leave for a period of time, and then after it was over, they would come back and continue manipulating and doing all of the shit that they were doing to society at that time. Now, I don't know what leaving means. It could mean leaving the planet, or it could mean going underground. You never know. Like, I think that if there is anything as such as an extraterrestrial, I don't believe that it's an actual extraterrestrial. I believe it's terrestrial. I believe it's from here, right? It's from underground. And just because it doesn't look the same as us, or it's different than us, people are, claiming it to be extraterrestrial when it's not. It's terrestrial. They're here.
I mean, that's a great diversionary tactic, to always be pointing people, outside of. I mean, we say it all the time, but pointing people outside of yourself. It's not us. It's fucking aliens, or some crazy outside threat. It's not us. It's not humans. That's for sure. Yeah, it's something else. We're not even.
Also, too, when you look at the whole abduction phenomenon, too, the very first abduction was the popular abduction that can be cited in the United States was Betty and Barney Hill, right?
And they're making a movie about that on Netflix.
But what people don't know about the Betty and Barney Hill case was, in the very beginning, Barney came out and said that it was the military. He said that he saw people in military uniforms, that it was the military that abducted them. And then later on, whenever they started going to the regressionist to get regressed about their experiences, the regressionist kind of, I don't know if you guys know,
led them a little bit.
Led them, yes. Asked them like very leading questions to have them change their story into it being aliens.
And that's very easy to do when someone's under hypnosis, of course.
Yeah, you can plant thoughts and ideas and things in the people's heads as easy as that. Right? You can just boom, like, especially in a regressionist state, and then that evolves into a bunch of other things that I've discovered too with researching the Stargate project as well. I interviewed quite a few people that had to do with this project, like actual official military people that were verified in the program, like Angela Ford, Lynn Buchanan.
No way. You interviewed her?
Yeah.
That is awesome. Sorry.
I got her. I got Lynn Buchanan, Dr. David Morehouse, and Dale Graff, but she was like the supervisor of the entire Stargate project. So what I discovered was that, because I was interviewing Lynn Buchanan, and he's talking about how he was asked by these men in black, right, to see if he could kill somebody with his mind, right? Just psychically remote view them and try and kill them.
The men who stare at goats type of deal.
Yeah, that's what that movie was based off of. That's him. The main character in that movie is actually called Lynn. Lynn Cassidy in the movie, but Lynn Buchanan is the real guy in real life. So he was approached by these men in black, which was, the government, of course. That's, what they are. They're just, black budget people. And he was approached by them and asked if he could psychically kill someone with his mind. If like they had a target, could you kill them? And he declined, obviously. And then I asked him, I was like, hey, well, I know that you declined, but if you wanted to, could you have killed the person with your mind, right? Like, let's just say that, I know that you said that you weren't going to do it, but could you do it? And he said, yes.
Hypothetically. Yeah.
Yeah, hypothetically. And he said, yes, I could have killed the person with my mind. Right. So then that evolved into, I think, what happened. I think that was a test for him, because I think that the reason that they shut down that Stargate project in '95 was because they found a different use for it. Right. It evolved into something else. And they couldn't carry those people that were working for intelligence data collection into a new special access program. So the new program evolved into something way more sinister, which is exactly like what I was explaining to you with Lynn Buchanan. Like, it evolved into a remote influencing, remote assassination, remote controlling people psychically to do things out in the public. I know that might sound a little far-fetched, but if you can see the proof of that out here in the world. But again, I think that program evolved again, right? And then they completely cut humans out of that whole thing, and they developed a technology that can do it for them, right? They no longer have to have human involvement anymore. They've just created a technology that can psychically remotely control you, plant thoughts into your head.
No,
control you.
that's very scary.
You
I don't
better
like
hope the
this.
Clintons don't get a
Sorry.
hold of that shit. They won't have to suicide people anymore.
I just don't want, no. Okay, keep going.
Fuck that.
But I think, I mean, if you look up like V2K and shit like that, it's a very real technology. They can implant thoughts and ideas in your head. And then if you look at it, well, just psychically killing somebody, just taking them out with, your mind, raising their blood pressure to such a degree that they have a heart attack or they go into cardiac arrest or whatever like that, that would be the lazy way to do it. You wouldn't do it like that. It doesn't create as much upheaval, not as much political upheaval in whatever country or whatever place that you're trying to do it. What you would want to do is you would want to psychically convince somebody else to do the crime for you.
Manchurian candidate shit, yeah. Which explains to me that, not explains, but it's a great theory as to all these mass shootings and things like that happen, that they just so conveniently seem to happen right around the time they're trying to pass new laws.
They do.
And
And the people,
it's a great springboard
the
for that.
criminals typically are pretty out of it. They don't have a lot to say about why they did things. They're not like,
No, there's that guy in, I can't remember what city it was, but remember he did some shooting at a subway station, and he later turned himself in and said he was watching the news and realized that was him and turned himself in. He's like, I don't know how this happened, but he turned himself in because he saw himself on the news, and he's like, I did that. Holy shit. What? You remember that story?
I don't remember that, but it doesn't surprise me. I could definitely see that happening with some kind of mass MK Ultra kind of frequency to influence people to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And I think that that's exactly what's going on. It's kind of like the difference between, Osama bin Laden just dying in a cave, right? No one cares. No one cares about if Osama bin Laden died in a cave of, whatever.
You mean Tim Osman?
Yeah. But what you would want to do, right? You want to send SEAL Team 6 in,
Right.
Take him out, right? Because that looks way better optically, right? It's like, oh yeah, hooray America, we did it, we took down the enemy.
Even if you throw his body in the ocean at the end, it's totally fine.
Yeah,
America.
fuck yeah.
Yep.
But yeah,
Well,
that's what go ahead, brother.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, since we're talking about like government projects and shit, do you know much about Project Looking Glass? I figured for a New Year's show that'd be kind of a cool thing to talk about. I don't know if Ben's ever heard about it either, but Project Looking Glass is pretty interesting.
I've heard about it. Hold on one second, and I know as soon as I see even a small description, I'll be able to tell you whether or not I know about it.
Well, I think that that's another one of these things that's been lumped in with the secret space program. People and the super soldiers and all that, they all talk about this Project Looking Glass kind of technology. But if it does exist, it would have been a product of these remote viewers, because that was one of the things that they were tasked to do in the Stargate project. A lot of them were tasked to look into the future, look into the past, remote viewing and seeing it psychically. So if they created a technology out of the remote influencing psychic assassin program that happened after the Stargate project was shut down in 95, then it would make sense that they would develop some kind of technology also to be able to look into the future as well. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I've only heard people that talk about it that have claimed to be in these kinds of programs and stuff. So
Right. And
that's
that kind of
what-
brings me back to the idea that something like that probably does exist, but maybe the title of it and the idea behind Project Looking Glass is more of a cover story that seems ridiculous so that you don't believe they're actually fucking doing that. Who knows?
Well, what's really interesting too is like right whenever people started kind of talking about Project Looking Glass, they came out with that movie Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Right. So now anytime you go to Google and try and search up Looking Glass tech or Looking Glass technology or Project Looking Glass, the first 3 pages on Google is all Alice in Wonderland Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah.
Well, I just did that exact thing, but I made the mistake of doing Project Looking Glass, which is something else, and it immediately gives you the option for Operation Looking Glass. If you do Operation Looking Glass Wiki, it is the first thing that pops up. And I know that that's also another little trick, is the difference between Operation and Project is like,
Gray
depending on
America
what-
makes fun of that all the time. They're like Project Operation, Operation Project, whatever
I'm
one
not-
it is.
I'm not really sure. I haven't heard of this. I've heard of the name, but I didn't know anything about it. But I don't really know anything about this other than what it's saying, which makes sense in theory. To have a command post in the sky in case your nuclear command posts on the ground get destroyed. But
Well, the
I
Project
don't know
Looking
anything
Glass
about
that these people talk about is completely different. It's that they believe that the government has created these devices that allows them to look into the future and see what kind of events are going to happen and what they can do and what they can get away with, and basically on this timeline. And apparently, now this is just from what they say. They say that there's 3 of them. There's one in the United States, one in Russia, and one in some other country.
Probably
Probably
China.
China.
Probably. So, and apparently since 2000 and I don't know, 14 or 15 or something like that, that none of the Project Looking Glasses have depicted the same thing. They've all been like off with what they're showing people, right?
Yeah,
that
and a
was,
lot of that gets kind of QE white hat kind of
Yeah.
shit,
Right.
because a lot of them were saying, and this is why I like looking into this stuff, but there's certain things that smell a little funky, when you start looking into it. And one of them, I think they said past 2012. I could be wrong on that, but they couldn't see anything past 2012. There was some year that they couldn't see anything past that, and so that's why everything's been so fucking wonky
When
since
did the
then.
Large Hadron Collider get turned on?
2012.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that's I think probably tied into that whole idea, is that
I
certain
mean, that
fired
is
up.
what they're trying to do. That's not even, I don't even think that's science fiction at this point. They're trying to find other universes and other dimensions with that. So it's not weird if that fucks up our timeline.
Well, I think that a lot of that is to place blame onto something else that's not even tangible, so
Yeah,
that
fair.
they don't have to take responsibility. It's like an excuse of like why things are so shitty, right? Like, why is the government doing this? Why are they doing that? And instead of ever taking responsibility on their end or coming out and admitting any of the wrong that they've done against humanity, they can just shuffle it off onto, Project Looking Glass or CERN or any of this other shit, so that they don't have to be confronted with any of the real shit that they've ever done to humanity and the world, right? That's kind of how I see a lot of this stuff. And I know that that's not things that people want to hear, because they want to hear the dramatic, crazy, wild stories, but it's really the real stuff no one actually wants to listen to. They think that it's boring, and because
They
we've been
should,
used-
though. People should want to hear reality, regardless of how exciting or non-exciting.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where I think the community really needs to go. It needs to go into, researching real shit, right? And it doesn't matter if it makes you popular or not. Yeah, you can bring on all these fucking contactees and all these secret space program people for till the cows come home. It doesn't fucking matter. And it's probably going to get you a lot of views, and it's probably going to get you a lot of likes and a lot of subscribers, right? Because it's fantastical and all this crazy shit. But whenever you're talking about the real stuff, it doesn't seem to be as popular, right? Like Dark Journalist on YouTube, fantastic channel. He's been, talking about real shit for a really fucking long time. He's actually really popular on YouTube. But he just did a episode with a lady that lives in a different country that's really fucking researched a lot of this Jeffrey Epstein shit and a lot of the AI and how they want to simulate us into like a machine and create this VR virtual reality shit. And she's actually done real fucking hardcore journalistic research into it. And whenever you dig through the surface now, like I can't quote this verbatim because I literally just watched it earlier, so I don't have all the technical fucking shit here to this. But essentially what she's saying is that Jeffrey Epstein didn't have really anything to do with child sex trafficking and all that shit. That was the excuse that they used to bring him down. There was way more shit that was going on in the background. He was basically money managers for a lot of these fucking elite people. He had control of their money, where they were getting their money, how much money they had, where they were storing it in offshore bank accounts, and like all this stuff. And he had like connections to scientists, a lot of scientific research that he was funding. He actually made, he was one of the first people to try and make SpaceX a privately funded corporation, like all this different shit. And
yeah, he had weird ties to a lot of shit.
Everyone's just looking at the surface level fucking child sex trafficking and underage minor people, and then so that they put that out in the public and they can say that they've actually covered it, right? But they're not going to talk about all of the financial dealings that Jeffrey Epstein had with all of the powerful elites and the politicians, and what he was actually really fucking doing for them.
Yeah.
Right? And then they use the smoke screen of, child sex trafficking and pedophilia and all this shit.
Because it tugs at the heartstrings. That's going to trick people into they're going to have blinders on after that point.
It's that bombastic shit. It's that shit that's like eye-catching clickbait type shit where it's like, oh, child sex trafficking.
And they can't think about anything else after that because of how bad it makes them feel to think about that one thing.
Yeah, and then they don't want to think about it because a lot of people look into this stuff and are like, ooh, that's so beyond what I want to, like, I don't want to look into that.
So
like,
if
I
it
don't
comes
even
up
want
in
to
the
know.
news again, they just click past it.
Yeah,
I don't even want to know about that guy.
Exactly.
Easy dismissal. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's been the trick in the game for a really long time, is to put out a smoke screen, put out a cover story that seems super legit and really plausible, and get everybody believing in that smoke screen and in that fabricated fake story, that they don't dig deep enough to figure out the real story.
Yeah, and it sucks too because I'm always bouncing back and forth between like looking into some of this stuff and like, oh, that's really interesting, and then going more on human vibration side and being like, everything's a fucking psyop. Like literally everything, to an extent, is a fucking psyop. Like
everything that we can see kind of is a psyop, though.
I know. That's why if you look at it a different way, you're like, wow, it fucking is.
Right. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of mental work. And sometimes it's exhausting, and it's okay to take a break sometimes. But I don't fault anybody for digging deep either.
No, that's why we watch dumb shows on Netflix. You got to disconnect from, well, I mean, that's probably not disconnecting from reality, actually.
Get high, eat some mini corn dogs, and watch a show.
Yeah, some pizza rolls.
Hell yeah, I watch a bunch of shit on Netflix. I love movies and stuff. Like I watch TV shows and movies and shit all the time. And then people will be like, oh, well, why are you watching that garbage and bullshit? Well, because I find it entertaining and I like it, and it gives me a way to decompress,
Yeah, it's, I mean, you watch football, I watch dumb fucking movies. Who cares?
And either way, we're all watching it with an open eye. Like, we're going to notice the occult symbolism and we'll let it go.
We've
we'll
talked
be like,
about
no,
that a lot,
not today, not today.
Where it's like, There's a
Take the
difference between
conspiracy
your average normie watching shows and watching, and then we're watching them and fucking going, you see that? You see that?
But we try not to. We try
symbolism?
to do it relaxing, where we'll notice it and we're like,
And I just laugh
I
at it.
saw it. I'm just gonna let it go because it's okay. It's a chill
Like,
time.
you see that clear agenda they just said in that sentence? Yes, you see that?
Yeah. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of that, yeah, and you can pick that shit apart. I just watched they them on Peacock. It was the most propagandist fucking transgender bullshit I've ever fucking seen in
Sounds
my
like
life.
it.
And
I mean, I
had,
can tell that just from the title.
yeah, but I
Was it
thought I
movie?
thought maybe they would do like a satire thing and kind of maybe make it to where it's like kind of in the middle or like kind of in between. But nah, they just
it
went
was
all the
not.
way with it.
Full on.
But I kept watching it and I'm like, all right, fuck it. I know exactly what this is. Whatever. I'll watch it.
Right. You got to watch things for what they're for. Like,
Yeah.
we were going to bring up Travelers again. We were just because we've been rewatching it. And
I need to rewatch
we
it.
actually-
I really love that show.
go back
Yeah.
and rewatch it. It's worth a
This is
rewatch.
our third
There's-
time rewatching it.
Is it
I
really? That
believe.
makes
Yeah.
sense. No, but the first time we talked about it was with My Maria, and she was talking about how she thinks Q is basically
The director.
the director, like some
Yes.
sentient AI or something that's sending, and he's trying to constantly fucking switch shit to fix it.
But the people,
and-
it's almost like God too, in a way, if you think about it. So people
They
are
treat
just
him like
following
God.
blindly.
In the show, they actually
But they're
treat him
the
like
director
God.
knows you have to do what the director says,
Yeah.
and the director fucks up all the time, and the people keep doing it because they have to, because they come from a time where they have nothing. They barely show it. They show it, I don't know, a few scenes here and there of what their actual life is like in the future, but it got canceled before we could see any of that.
It is weird
Fuck
too.
you,
I
Netflix.
know, and
because
they
in the
wrapped it
future,
up
but-
really fucking weirdly too. I think that
Oh,
they
yeah.
knew
I don't
they
think it
knew
wrapped
that.
up.
Yeah, they wrapped it up. They wrapped it up with Project Omega. They completely wiped the entire system and they had to start over again.
Hold on, we're in season 3. We forgot, and we're rewatching.
Spoilers, whatever.
I got a
It's
really good
definitely
memory, so I can
original.
remember like a lot of shit. But yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
the show's really fucking good. It and that's exactly what I thought too. But what I thought was really weird with the show is that it turned out that the director is actually the bad guy.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like he's like the enemy.
And they figure
really.
that out too, kind of.
Yeah.
They're like, they start questioning it kind of in the second season where they're like,
Yeah, but that's when it gets canceled. I remember that it got canceled around a time where the people that were blindly following a higher being or a higher person, whatever they thought the director was, or we thought the director was, they're following, killing people, doing whatever the director says. Then they start questioning it, and then the show gets canceled. And then COVID-19 happened right after that. It got canceled in 2019.
Yeah, that's when I didn't watch it until 2020. I don't believe, but
Oh.
I binged it all. I've only watched it one time through. I need to go back and rewatch. I need to rewatch OA too. OA is a fantastic.
Yeah,
show.
we
Guys,
watched that through twice.
and that got canceled too.
Yeah, it got canceled. So the second season was my fucking favorite, hands down. Where
mind
they
blowing.
break that third wall. Yeah,
It's
they're like,
so
yeah, we were
full
acting
of-
that whole time. It was like quantum entanglement a little bit, or a lot of it. I don't know.
It's so full of like very possibly real shit, but they do it in such a great way. It's fucking fantastic show.
But they also have the weird hand movements that make it look ridiculous, and people
Yeah.
just discount it, like, oh, they're doing dumb hand movements to stop a school
She
shooting.
does the
That's
weird
stupid.
noises. She's like,
And then the second season though is fantastic.
Mind blowing shit. I love that second season. I think I've watched the second season twice through now. And my favorite is the very end. The very end, because it puts everything in perspective. Sorry, spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen
cover
OA,
your
but
ears.
I highly recommend it. So what it's all leading up to is, you remember the rose-colored stained glass window that everybody that's ever made it to the stained glass window, they aren't able to handle the truth because it's supposed to reveal the 100% truth of everything, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I'm like, holy shit. So whenever that guy gets to the stained glass window and opens it up, the first thing, this is what everyone that I've talked to that's watched it has completely missed, is that the first thing that he sees, first he sees OA falling from, like, she's like an angel, and then she falls to the ground, right? But the second thing that he sees a fucking movie set.
A movie set.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to say too. But it's all a movie.
Yep.
And that's where I was
Welcome to
talking about
life,
kind of
everybody.
bouncing back and forth between looking into stuff and going, it's all theater. Like, and it sounds reductive and lazy to just say, oh, it's all a distraction, it's all theater, blah, blah, blah. But
And isn't she kind of friends with the main bad guy in season 1? They're like lovers or together or something. I don't know.
Of the OA? No, he was her captor. He captured the 4 of
Isn't
them.
he in the second season too?
Yeah, he's in the second season because whenever she escaped out of the dungeon that he had them all in, she escaped, but the rest of them weren't able to escape. So,
Gotcha.
but he did the movements because it requires 4 people. He did the movements with them, and they went to the different reality. And then that's where in the first season she's training all of the other kids and the friends and the school teacher to do the movements so that she could skip into that reality with them. And then
Right.
season 2 is whenever she's skipped into that other reality and she appears there and is all messed up because her memories from that life in that different reality weren't with her. It was only her memories.
Right. That's such a good show. And all of these concepts, the fact that shows like this get canceled is, I mean, it's, I guess, par for the course, but it seems like it's something that people should be watching on TV. If you're going to mindlessly watch TV, not that we're doing that, but if you're going to watch something, it should be something that could potentially be real or something that's going to make you think a little bit. And they all get canceled partway through before you can see what happens. I don't know. Maybe it's prompting thought as well.
Yeah, they should definitely go back and do a season 3 of the OA and do a season of the Travelers. I watched both those shows back to back and I was like, holy shit.
We did too when they
Phenomenal.
came out. We had to watch them every week. But anyway, highly recommend for everybody.
anyway, TV shows. Yes.
Yeah, I know. Whatever.
We digressed a lot there.
Anyway, Ben, what's up, Ben? Everything okay?
You just take a
Sorry. No, I because I got to go to bed because I got work tomorrow,
right.
regular time. I have like 2 more loads of laundry that I got to cycle through to make sure everything's done.
Oh,
dumb life shit. Well,
Damn,
it's fine.
man.
We're good place to wrap up anyway.
Oh,
Ryder, why don't you tell
sorry.
everybody where they can find
okay,
your
man.
ass and everything that you do.
Yes, you can find me on YouTube at Raised by Giants, Rockfin, and Raised by Giants, Odyssey, Raised by Giants, and all of the different podcast platforms, and on Forbidden Knowledge News Network and Instagram at Raised by Giants Pod. I'm completely over Facebook. Not fucking with Facebook anymore. Done with it. Oh, and you can follow me on Twitter at Raised by Giants 8.
Nice.
Thank you. Thank you
Did
guys. I
we-
appreciate you.
Of course.
Of course,
Did
thank
we
you.
plug
Thanks for coming on,
Corey's
man.
book last time? I can't remember if I did. Anyway, Corey,
Might as
I
well.
did plug it. But yeah, Corey Hughes has his JFK book out now. Ben, you'll be interested in that. It's
Okay.
buymeacoffee.com/JFK book. It's a huge, massive book. You can pre-order it now. Again, that's not a sponsor. We're just homies and I'm plugging him. Anyway,
Love Corey.
happy New Year, everybody. Thanks, Ryder. Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Jen. Bye.